Okay, so this is a shout out to those of you who are working in the sustainability space or climate space or ESG space. You're interested in it, you've done something in it, you wish there was more that you could do. This month that just passed, November, we saw a lot of things that actually happened, including the Conference of Parties, COP29, where people, representing countries actually were there negotiating on a global level what needs to be done, how much money is going to happen to make it happen, and try and limit our world's temperature in a range that is actually suitable for our species to survive. And perhaps you have been disappointed because the conference itself didn't really come up with something that made people feel like it was an increase in ambition, that we were moving faster in pace and scale, and there were even delegates or previous sort of representatives of the UN or even their respective countries that have been even questioning whether or not this conference of parties is the right sort of way to even pursue these discussions any further, because it's just too slow. It's not suitable for the pace and scale that's needed for us to actually avoid locking in the worst of the climate crisis in the next 6 years' time, which is 2030, right? There were some silver linings that happened. We saw that the climate finance target has increased to 300 billion, but it's still a far cry from the 1.3 trillion that's required and being asked for by a number of countries in order to help move mitigation and adaptation work faster. We saw that there were some steps ahead moving in terms of the international carbon trading to make sure that climate finance can actually get to those different projects across the world. But at the same time, we also saw dilution of this ambition towards phasing out the use of fossil fuels, which had always been something that people who are investing into climate projects were sort of requesting for, to make sure that the solutions actually create the next problems, right? But we saw, a bitterness sort of deepen between rich and poor countries. We saw a number of oil producing countries actually, backtracking on their previous commitments. And of course, with the US elections coming into play, there's the expectation that US is likely to also backtrack on its commitments. And if history repeats itself, maybe even potentially leave the Paris Agreement itself, right? So COP29 ended, and then the world moved into the negotiations for the United Nations Global Plastics Treaty, which is something that it was trying to put a legal instrument in play to require globally certain rules and regulations and requirements about plastics. And it was talking about a draft that would include looking at the plastics across its entire value chain, right? So some of you might have been following that. So it wasn't just about, plastic recycling, which is a waste management issue. But there was a lot of talk about saying that we need to actually curb it from the production phase before the pollution even happens. We need to make sure there's certain types of plastics that just shouldn't be allowed to exist in the market. There should be certain types of chemicals, additives, and things like that being used in the plastics industry that should not even be allowed in the first place, because we already know it causes harm to the environment and human health. And we have already detected a lot of plastic even in our human organs and placentas of our babies, right? So if you have been following that, perhaps you were disappointed as well with that. But disappointment is just disappointment. Frustration is just frustration. What we do with it is going to make a major difference, okay? And I think from the onset, we had to already know there's no one actually going to come and save us. Would global regulations be great? Of course. It gives the teeth to the tiger, right? And it would make it very clear for the business community, especially if you're doing business cross borders, about which guidances, which sort of requirements, which type of technologies you would want to go for, what investments and strategies that you would do, because there is a clear and simplified sort of boundary, I guess, in which you can work in, right? And with the talk sort of failing on these parts, of course, it's going to be a little bit more complicated, okay? But we at the same time have to ask ourselves, for all those that's championing for something that would create an economic system, any legal and policy ecosystem that can support businesses to actually do the right thing and make money and make livelihoods. At the end of the day, we at the market, we have to actually be supporting them. And I'm not talking about just being individual consumers, but also as the sort of market players itself. We are businesses ourselves. We supply something, we provide value to society, and in exchange for something that would support our livelihoods, right? So it's not sufficient to sort of like sit on the sidelines and wait for those regulations to just happen. We actually need to step up more. And we've been seeing business leadership, parts of it already stepping up to do that. But what is it that we can do within our own sphere of influence to make sure that when they need the support, when they are in those discussion rooms, when they're in those negotiations, instead of always being gunned down by, this is going to affect too many people's livelihoods, or there are no sort of like commercially viable market solutions at this point. What if we could actually lend our support and say that there is? It's there. Give us our help, right, that we need, that we request, and it's ready to deploy. And therefore, in that sense, whatever happened in the last month doesn't really change our mission or the approach actually in sustainability. Okay, maybe it changes the approach, how we want to, deal with different people, right? But it doesn't change the mission. The mission has always been like, how can we actually tackle people's livelihoods, make sure that they can access goods and services that basically don't mess up our common future, right? And this isn't about caring for the environment because the environment needs us to protect it. Hello? We are actually trying to protect our own species to make sure that this so-called environment is suitable for us to live in. The world actually can take care of its own without us humans. It might take a while. There might be species that go extinct, but there'll be new species that emerge. So is this really something that's going to be influenced by, there's no, global treaty, the governments didn't agree on this, and so therefore we're not going to move in this direction? I think, yes, there are going to be people who stay in that realm, but if you're in the community that I am in, then remember this. We always knew no one's going to come and save us. And we always have that choice in terms of what it is that we want to do to bring the odds in our favor. So if you're feeling down, sad, disappointed, frustrated, it's okay that you feel those feelings. Congratulations, you're a human, right? Question is, what is it that we're going to do with those emotions now? We always knew that things weren't going to go completely in our favor. And so I challenge you to think about this. What is it that you absolutely will not back down on to make sure that we create a life where we can survive and thrive, not for just this generation, but generations to come? And to just give you a little bit of a snippet of hope, in the UN Global Plastics Treaty, there was always this potential threat that the treaty would end with an agreement that was super weak in ambition. And more than 100 countries actually refused to back down and refused to just accept that the treaty should not talk about production as something that they have to deal with, and to solve the problem right from the start. So while the treaties actually are going to be, coming back in discussion next year, I think it gives us a chance to actually think further. What is it that we could do to actually make those negotiators who are championing for something that is of higher ambition, that can ensure plastic pollution doesn't actually screw us over? It's going to triple by 2060. How can we actually support those negotiators there? How can we give them wings to fly and really dampen out those sounds that are stopping us from progressing? So there was a standing ovation that happened in the Global Plastics Treaty when they talked about not backing down. And I hope that you realize that just getting back up is a very courageous thing to do. And that's what we just need to do. I'll see you out there, fellow comrade. You got this. We're in the same journey together. See ya.